In this video, I've decided to use this beautiful winter weather that I'm surrounded with right now to do a winter test with the MG4 and try to check this out. I'll just start the camera on my mobile phone here. Minus 10 degrees. It was actually minus 12 just a short while ago. And among other things, I want to test a myth regarding rear-wheel driven EVs and very slippery roads as I can present to you today. But in this video, I'll also drive to a business meeting on a long journey in this cold winter weather. And I'll of course do a DC charging test of the car, which actually is pretty exciting. But this is a Chinese produced car from a manufacturer which badge actually goes back to British affordable open sports cars. So the big question is, should I actually take this car seriously? Stick around. This MG4 is on paper a bang for the buck. It's cheaper than a Tesla Model 3, an ID.3 or even a Kia Niro EV. And furthermore, MG just launched a Nordic edition. Well, that's what they call it here in Denmark. And that's a bit funny because it doesn't have a heat pump. It only charges on one phase when charging AC, and it has a smaller battery. So I suppose they should have called it a Y edition, or maybe done a convertible, something like that. But this MG4 is also the first MG built on an entirely electric platform, the MSP platform. It's called Modular Scalable Platform. As all the competitors, a battery in the bottom, rear-wheel drive, and the platform can be done longer and wider as you decide. The battery in this car is liquid cooled and heated if you need that. It's on 64 kilowatt hours. Total capacity 61.7 kilowatt hours net capacity. The car's consumption is 166 watt hours per kilometer, and that adds up to a consumption WLTP on 435 kilometers. The car is, as I said, rear-wheel driven. That means that there's a permanent magnet motor on the rear axle running the rear wheels. No four-wheel drive option for now. The motor and battery package produces 150 kilowatts, that's equivalent to 204 horsepower. It produces 250 Newton meters, and that produces a very respectable acceleration of 0 to 100 kilometers an hour on 7.9 seconds. And as I said, this luxury version actually has a heat pump, which is a great thing in this cold climate. And then there's a little heat-related fun fact. Here in the front, this little grille in the bottom of the front of the car, that's what MG calls AGS, that's active grille shutter. There are some small vents opening and closing. In normal driving, these vents will be closed according to MG's website. Actually, I've found out they're open all the time. Also, when I'm just starting out at minus 10 degrees, that's maybe they'll fix it in a software update. But the whole idea is that when these vents are closed, it will create a better aerodynamic, less noise in the cabin. And oh yeah, you would think that with a car like this, rear-wheel driven, no front-wheel drive option, that would make plenty of room for frunk. Well, let's check it out. No, but let's talk a little charging. This luxury version charges with this Type 2/CCS plug at 3 phases here in Denmark. That's equivalent to 11 kilowatts. And if you pull this little thing, then you of course can DC charge via the CCS charging port, and that would give you the ability to charge with up to 135 kilowatts DC. And according to MG's website, it will make you able to charge from 5 to 80% in just 35 minutes. I'll actually test that a little later, and that's pretty interesting. Furthermore, the MG4 supports vehicle to load, V2L. It's the most simple form of using the energy of the battery of this car, so you can actually just use the energy to run a refrigerator or electric tool, something like that, up to 2,200 watts. And that's actually pretty good. You could maybe also see a possibility if you like camping, but I'll get back to that in just a moment. Another pretty great fact about this car is that it has a weight distribution between the front axle and the rear axle of 50-50. That's, together with the rear wheel drive, actually some pretty cool old BMW qualities. Something that's not so pretty cool old BMW qualities is the looks of this car. I'm not a great design guru or something like that, but yeah, I don't know. The first thing I realized when I saw this car in real life for the first time was this splitted rear spoiler. Actually, if you look at it from an odd angle, you know, it looks kind of crooked. Well, I don't know if I like that. Well, another thing is this little tiny stoplight right here. It's pretty cute. And then there's these funny looking light things. I don't know what they're good for, but yeah, haven't seen it before. And maybe I have to like it just because of that. And as I said, if you want to use this V2L solution for camping, then if you want to tow a caravan, well, you can't do it. This car has the option to mount a tow hitch, but it's only 500 kilos, both with and without brakes. Another thing is the tailgate. It's manual, which I actually like in a car of this price range. Many of these motorized tailgates are pretty slow anyhow. So yeah, I like it. Reasonable sized trunk. I have this 2 small plastic boxes I always carry with me when I'm out doing my videos. And you can see how they fit in the rear here. There's also a little extra space here. You can put down your charging cable. Of course, that's a possibility you'll need to use if you want to bring a Type 2 charging cable, because you don't have the frunk out in front. Now, let's go inside and check out the cabin. The first thing I realized when I got into the MG4 for the first time was this dark headliner. Hey, who doesn't like a dark headliner? Another thing is, try and listen to this. Actually, the sound when you close the door in the MG4, it's almost premium. Otherwise, the cabin has an okay feel to it. Nice damped blinkers, okay feeling to the steering wheel and all the buttons, stuff like that. Well, there's these buttons under this screen here in the center. They feel pretty cheap. But the rest of the cabin is actually pretty okay. But I have to be fair, I miss physical buttons for the basic controls like the heater and the volume knob, stuff like that. And then of course you get these 2 screens right in the front. You get the screen where you can read your speed, your level of recuperation, your state of charge and estimated range. I like when they put both those figures, both the state of charge in percent and estimated range. The center screen, not so much. It's actually a maze to find out. Not that very responsive. You can, if you plug in your phone, get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. But yeah, you know, using this screen is just hard, and it's, as I said, it's a maze. It's not very easy, and it's not very intuitive. When you have to use the climate control, the heater in this car, you'll first have to press this button here, you know, up in the top, which is pretty hard to get while you're driving. And then it's actually not able to heat up the cabin sufficiently here at winter time. Well, it is. You just have to push it to 25 or maybe even 26 degrees. Normally I drive 22 degrees and that's fine, but here I had to push it a lot up, and then I have an acceptable level of comfort here. But you have a heated steering wheel and heated seats, and those things work perfectly.
I can make phone calls for you.
No.
You may need to pair your phone first.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Stop. Yeah. And the voice command in this car, it sucks. And then there's the navigation. It doesn't give you an estimated state of charge at your arrival, and therefore it's also not able to automatically prepare the battery in this car for DC charging. But this car has a magical button. If you go into the battery management menu and you go into energy consumption, here you'll find a little slider called Intelligent battery heating. And this improves fast charging performance. Of course, it's like in the old days, if your car had a choke, I think what's called, you had to learn to use your car. And that's the same here. If you push this button, a little cooker starts to heat up the coolant in the battery. A little electric pump starts to circulate the coolant, and the battery will reach the perfect temperature for DC charging. I've been trying this system and it works actually pretty good, and I'll get back to that a little later in the video. In the rear of the MG4, the space is okay. You have this little pockets for a mobile phone, maybe some magazines for the kids. The stereo isn't that great, but it's there and it works. You have this little bump in the middle, which is a little funny because this car is actually built on an EV platform only. You have a USB charger for your kids' phone, stuff like that. Actually, everything's okay. And a last thing, there's space for your feet under the front seat, which is a great thing if you have like adults or large kids in the rear. Behind the wheel of the MG4, I'd like to tell you how the 50-50 weight distribution works together with the rear wheel drive, stuff like that. But check out these roads. It's icy roads. So instead, I'll do a winter testing session. I'll just put the accelerator pedal to the metal. I'll even turn a little bit. Nothing happens. It's not even dramatic. Okay, now I'll take the car up to around 60 kilometers an hour, and I'll just release the accelerator on these icy roads. And the recuperation will be working on the rear wheels. 3, 2, 1. Again, even if I'm provoking the car, it doesn't get any near dangerous. The MG4 also has recuperation in 3 levels. Actually, it has 5 different drive modes. There's even a snow mode where the recuperation is turned down. But I've been driving it in normal mode also because the maze that this infotainment is, it's just very difficult to get into the menu to change the drive mode, and it drives perfectly fine just in normal mode. And in normal mode I have maximum recuperation on level 3, and that's what MG call KERS. That's kinetic energy recovery system, and I'm driving at the maximum level and it's absolutely no problem. Something that's not so fine is the assisting systems, the drive aids. Well, on the motorway they tend to do some phantom braking where the car just suddenly slows pretty rapidly, and also the auto steer, the lane assist can be pretty nervous and suddenly just pull the steering wheel if it gets a little confused. And actually I went on a longer journey just a few days ago because I had to go to a business meeting in the city of Odense. It's 141 kilometers from my home, and 90% of that journey is freeway. And I drove at the speed limits all the time. That's 130, 110, and there was a little queuing up and stuff like that. So I ended up with an average speed of 103 kilometers an hour. My consumption at that trip was approximately 250 watt-hours per kilometer, and that would give me a range of around 245 kilometers. And actually, bear in mind, I was below zero all the way, between -1 and -3, -4, and I had a light headwind all the way. I activated the battery heater at the point of the bridge at Lillebælt, and that means that I drove with the battery heater on for approximately 30 minutes, something like that. And what I did was that before attending to the business meeting, I went to a DC charger that was just at the motorway, and then I juiced the car up again because I had used up 57% state of charge on those 141 kilometers. And that functioned perfectly. I charged it in no time. This car actually charges pretty good. And how it charges, I want to show you here. As you can see, I went to my local DC supercharger, a 300 kilowatt charger in the evening, because I wanted to make sure that I had a charger by myself. And the car actually charged amazing. It peaked at 141 kilowatts and stayed at above 140 kilowatts all the way up to 50% state of charge. MG claims that this car can charge from 5 to 80% in 35 minutes. I charged from 10 to 80% in 25 minutes and 44 seconds. It's amazing, mind-blowing good for a car in this price range. I really like it. Now I've been driving the MG4 for a week, and what do I think about this car? Well, I'll start to set up, 3 great things about this car and 3 things that I don't like with this car. I'll start with the bad stuff. The bad stuff is definitely the infotainment. I think MG has thought about doing this the same way as a Tesla. They want to put as many functions as possible on the screen, but it's just not as intuitive, it's not as responsive, it's just in a whole nother league, not the same experience as using the screen in a Tesla. Another thing is the driving aids. I won't say they're dangerous, but I don't like driving with them, especially when there's snow on the road that maybe covers the lines on the road, and the system gets confused and it actually begins doing some pretty unpleasant stuff. So I don't like driving with it. That's not good enough, and it's not on par with what you can get in some other systems. And then there's the heater in the cabin. Yeah, it could be better, but hey, it's not a bigger problem than I just put the temperature to 25 or 26 degrees, and then I can have an acceptable temperature in the cabin. But yeah, it seems a bit like it's not quite there in this very cold climate that we have today. And then there's the good stuff. The main thing is obviously the price. You get so much car for your money here. It's bang for the buck. Another thing, it's this car's ability to actually travel far, because it has a fine consumption. It's not Tesla Model 3 good, but it's good. It's a very nice low consumption, and then it charges really great. I actually suppose that this car charges faster than a Tesla Model 3 on a supercharger. That's pretty crazy. Whoa, that's pretty crazy. And then there's one last thing. The guarantee that you buy this car with in Denmark, at least, it's 7 years or 150,000 kilometers. What might come first? And that's a pretty good argument to buy this car, because I can't sit here and tell you how this car will feel or look or hold up in 10 years. But if you know that the next 7 years or 150,000 kilometers, that you won't have to pay any extra expenses than normal service and maintenance, well, that makes you sleep pretty good at night. Another thing that I'm really happy about with this car is the manual heater of the battery. I actually think that in the week I drove this car, I learned to use it. I found out that, in this cold weather, 30-40 minutes, that's perfect. It uses a little more energy, of course, and then you can charge very rapidly. And I just think that's pretty great. And I can't stop thinking how far we've come. Just a few years ago, with a budget like this car, you would maybe get a Nissan Leaf, and I actually think not even, that doesn't have a water temperature regulated battery and doesn't charge as fast. This is just in many ways a very good EV, and it's affordable. And it paints a very nice picture of what the future will bring for EVs. I'm looking forward. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my stuff here on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe. Give me a like if you want, and a nice comment. I'd appreciate that. I normally upload my videos Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central European Time. Hope to see you there. Bye.